Hi all, this is Simona Rich and this is a video about the 7th house of astrology. This is the house of partnerships of all sorts, including business partnerships as well as marriage. It describes what kind of husband or wife you will have. For example, if the planet Mars is located here, the husband might be violent. If Saturn is located here, you may have a strict or older partner. And if the planet Venus is located here in a man's chart, he may have a younger, sometimes irresponsible or flirtatious wife, but other aspects must be taken into consideration to arrive at the full conclusion. This house also shows whether you are likely to divorce and if you will remarry. Since this house is about unions of all sorts and not only marriage, it shows how well you will do in business and any other kinds of partnerships. It also shows whether you will be successful in legal matters and whether all kinds of contracts will usually result in happiness or unhappiness to you. It also shows whether you're a team player or it's better for you to work on your own. It shows whether you will have enemies in the business world or enemies to do with your employment. Those will be visible enemies, as it's the 12th house that deals with secret enemies, such as the ones that use occult forces to cause harm. But sometimes it's not even about enemies to do with the 7th house, but simply people who have different views to your own. Since this house is opposite to the house of self, it shows how well you work with others and whether you're able to work as part of the whole, as part of the team. Here are the meanings of each planet located in this house. Pluto in the 7th house. Pluto here is in its detriment. Pluto doesn't like to make compromises, and this is the major lesson of the house of partnerships, to make compromises. It can attract partners that are intense, obsessive, violent, and domineering. It could also mean that you both will try to dominate each other, and whoever has a weaker will lose out. And this is usually going to be the native. However, if it's well aspected, a partner may be very powerful and may cause significant growth, spiritual growth, or any other kind of great permanent change. The change can either be bad or good depending on Pluto's aspects. The partner will have strong will, and they may be in some sort of occult activities. Also, if Pluto is well aspected, this placement gives you an ability to understand other people well. This makes you able to avoid bad business dealings and signing contracts that work to your disadvantage. With such a placement, it's also important not to try to dominate others and to play in a team as a part of a whole and not as the most important person. The location of Pluto shows through which house you personally evolve. And if it's located in the 7th house, it means you evolve through partnerships and marriage. Your partnerships and marriage will be intense. Depending on the aspects of Pluto, your partnerships and marriage may fill you with energy or deplete you of it. Since Pluto is the planet of intensity, it may cause you to act in an extreme way in partnerships, making others distance themselves from you. For example, at the start of the relationship, you may be too obsessed about your partner, which will make you lose him or her. Sometimes you may be jealous, greedy, and revengeful in relationships, and in order to transform yourself, you must acknowledge those negative qualities to yourself and change yourself. With such a placement, you are likely to treat people you don't know as potential enemies. You will be on the defense when starting a relationship and will only lower your protective barriers when a person meets your expectations of a friend or lover. You have this defensive nature because you feel insecure and threatened in the presence of others. To combat that, you project a powerful persona so that nobody could hurt you. With such a placement, you are likely to attract people who are powerful and intense, and they will probably dominate you. If the lessons of not domineering each other are learned by both persons in marriage, this placement will unify both persons, making them experience what it's like to blend with each other in the most perfect manner. Also, this placement, if Pluto is well aspected, gives long marriages if Plutonian lessons are learned. On the other hand, if this planet is ill aspected, A divorce is very likely, and an obsessive ex will create all sorts of problems, including legal ones, and it will be very difficult to get rid of this person from your life. Since the 7th house is also the house of public enemies, this placement of Pluto invites really obsessive and even dangerous and cruel enemies. So the best advice is to avoid people whom you notice are obsessive or extreme in some way. And in general, try to coexist with people peacefully so that no bitter enmities are created. Also, with such a placement, it's wise to avoid business partnerships because it will attract very intense partners, and in case your business fails, the consequences could be really bad. It is always wise to check the natal chart of a potential business or marriage partner, especially if your Pluto is ill aspected. If you find that another person's Pluto is also ill aspected, the sanest thing to do is to keep far from such a person. Neptune in the 7th house. This placement usually indicates that you have a karmic connection with the person that you will marry. It also gives you an ability to feel other people as well as take on their moods. The marriage is likely to be a spiritual one, especially if Neptune is well aspected. And in general, in this case, your relationships with other people will be based on spiritual values such as compassion and unconditional love. However, if Neptune is ill aspected, the situation changes. Then Neptune casts a shadow over the 7th house affairs, making you unable to see others the way that they are. This makes you then get into the wrong partnership, and you will fail to see people in their true light in general. This will cause many disappointments, like you being cheated by other people. When it comes to public enemies, this planet will not cause any truly harmful people to come into the native's life. This being said, one should also pay attention to the 12th house of secret enemies. So it does mean that you will have no enemies at all, but the public ones will be mild. Also, when it comes to legal problems, this placement can create a lack of clarity about contracts and other legal matters, like mistakes and misunderstandings with legal papers that will be annoying but not of a life-changing nature. Even if Neptune is well aspected, you might idealize your relationships, but it gets much worse if the planet is afflicted. Then you're likely not to see the other person for who he is at all, but have your own ideal version of the partner, and this eventually ends up in disillusionment. If the planet is well aspected, the native may marry someone very creative or spiritual. If it's ill aspected, the native will find himself attracted to people with problems such as drug or mental problems. He will try to be the savior in the relationship, believing that he can help that person. With such a placement, it's best not to marry at all because Neptune doesn't favor legal unions. The native might also end up being totally used by the partner, energy or money-wise, but he will prefer to keep his pink glasses on and not to face the truth. When it comes to business partnerships, Neptune will attract irresponsible and unreliable business partners who are not serious about business activities, so it's not recommended to have a business partner with such a placement. With ill-aspected Neptune, you also may be unreliable in business partnerships, and your marriage partner will also find it difficult to trust you. With really harsh aspects, the native will become so unreliable to the point that he may consciously mislead others. And the same will apply to those interacting with the native. They will be equally as unreliable. Either the native or his or her partners might be psychologically unstable, and the native is at risk of being involved in painful legal quarrels and his public image suffering for one reason or another.
Uranus in the 7th house. This isn't a very good placement because the native will strive for total freedom in marriage and will probably not be able to compromise at all. This usually leads to divorce. Usually the native will not think getting into marriage through. Marriage might take place out of impulse under unusual circumstances and with an unusual person. The spouse might be a genius, or he might simply be an eccentric or a really strange person. The marriage would only work if both partners are unusual and give plenty of space for each other so that the native doesn't feel his freedom restricted in any way. Friends can suddenly appear in the native's life and then disappear as quickly. The native is usually intuitive about the kind of people he is with. Sometimes relationships with others don't go well because the native might too quickly change his opinions and attitudes, making others feel confused or even upset. This may cause the native's public image to suffer. The native's own partner might leave the native confused because they are too unpredictable. You're likely to want from marriage inspiration and creativity if you marry at all. Sometimes natives with such a placement choose not to marry, which is quite wise. You will probably have some unusual marital structure where much freedom is given. You might have a few marriages, and you're likely to get in and out of relationships frequently or at least unpredictably. The native is likely to be a poor team player. With a badly aspected Uranus, it's important to avoid legal matters because the native is likely to be unsuccessful in them. This isn't a favorable placement for business partnerships. Business partners might be strange and unreliable. The business itself will have no stability, and legal problems might also arise. Neither it's suitable for the native to be involved in any legal affairs with such a placement, as he is likely to lose out. Also, he should avoid being a public persona, as his public image might get destroyed having such an erratic planet in the house of partnerships.
Saturn in the 7th house. This placement gives a sense of responsibility in all partnerships. Marriage is likely to be late in life, or the native may marry an older or just more mentally mature, serious and career-minded person. This placement gives long marriages, and both parties will take the institution of marriage seriously if Saturn has good aspects. Sometimes the native may decide not to marry at all, or will marry only when he is financially secure. Natives with such a placement are responsible and can be trusted in work-related tasks. They will work well with others, usually excelling in law, contract making, or business management. What will assure their financial success and stable employment is working well with others. An afflicted Saturn will make the person critical and strict in marriage and other relationships. He will also feel confined, not able to express himself. The other half may be domineering, negative, cold, and not able to show any love. He or she could be a father or mother figure to you more than a lover. They may try to create obstacles where there aren't any. Life with such a person would seem a struggle. Also, you should definitely think twice about marrying if your Saturn is ill-aspected by malefics, because this would attract abusive and domineering partner who would make your life unbearable. With such a placement, it's important not to get married before the 30th birthday. Only after Saturn's return, the native should consider marriage. That's because before the return, the native is still not mature enough to see what marriage is really about and may be bitterly regretting having tied the knot before the return of the planet. There might be big responsibilities involved in marriage and other partnerships with such a placement. When it comes to business unions, a well-aspected Saturn will provide stability in such unions. Partners will be reliable, and the business will experience slow but steady growth, eventually bringing a lot of wealth to the native. Jupiter in the 7th house. Since Jupiter is the planet of luck, being placed in this house, it brings fortune in matters to do with partnerships. In other words, you will be lucky in partnerships of all sorts. You will be honest in your dealings with others, and you will expect the same honesty and fairness from others. Usually the spouse is wealthy or from a noble family. He is likely to be kind-hearted and of a noble character. He could be overweight. He might be from a foreign culture and with a spiritual or religious bent of mind. The marriage will last and will be happy. In general, you will look for happiness in partnerships, be it marriage or any other kind of interaction with people. Sometimes, due to the expansive nature of Jupiter in the house of marriage, you might find it difficult to limit yourself to one person only. This is especially true, or more than one marriage is a possibility, if Jupiter is located in Sagittarius, Pisces, or Gemini. There might be some difficulties in accepting some marriage responsibilities, and you may sometimes think that you are missing out on something better. Also, you might be irresponsible or too light-hearted about certain marriage or business matters. In marriage, it's important to find a partner who gives you enough space. When it comes to business partnerships, they are going to be prosperous. Areas that will be easier to succeed in are to do with negotiations, sales, law, contract making, and other legal occupations. This placement gives the native excellent diplomacy and negotiation skills, so any occupation requiring these abilities would be suitable to the native. The native will be open and caring, and this will bring appreciation and friendships. He will truly want others to be happy and successful. However, if Jupiter is ill-aspected, the native will take things for granted and will expect too much from others. Also, the native will choose wrong partners, believing in their exaggerated stories without feeling the need to check facts about them. This would lead to business failure. Mars in the 7th house. The placement of the planet Mars in this house means that a lot of energy will be expended in partnerships. Impulsive nature might be the quality both of the native and of his partners in business or marriage. If Mars is well aspected, a lot can be accomplished in business partnerships. If it's ill aspected, there will be disagreements with employees and quarrels or even violence in marriage. There could be divorce as well. The lesson with such a placement would be to learn to be more diplomatic when dealing with others. Sometimes the native will only mind himself in partnerships and might be too competitive. In relationships, you might be domineering and will probably not tolerate if your partner wants to be in control. Relationships can serve as a source of passion, inspiration, and development, or contentions depending on Mars aspects. Also, it's possible even with bad aspects to make this placement work if the energy of domination and aggression is released in appropriate ways without hurting anyone. Your other half is likely to be energetic, competitive, impulsive, and aggressive. He's likely to have a powerful athletic figure. With such a placement, you will tend to be attracted to active individuals and would find passive potential partners a turn off. Sexual attraction and the beauty of body would be primary reasons for getting into the relationship and getting married, which might lead to regret later on. Both you and your partner might be into extreme or aggressive sports, into active travel, or you might both have military, police, or similar careers. It's good with such a placement to get involved into competitive sports or to release accumulated energies in any other way, so that it doesn't get released through arguments. Also, since the 7th house is the house of public enemies, having Mars placed here will bring quite aggressive opponents. When you're in a relationship, it's well worth checking the natal chart of your partner. If he has Mars negatively aspected, especially by Saturn or Pluto, then it's more than likely that he will be violent in a relationship, and it's best not to get into a relationship with such a person. Another danger with the aspected Mars is that you won't have any luck in matters to do with law. So if you need divorce, it's not likely that it's going to be in your favor, and in general, matters to do with paper signing and other legal issues won't be favorable to you either. If Mars is well aspected, this is a good placement for work which requires aggressive selling. Sun in the 7th house. This placement makes the native want to shine in personal relationships. You derive your sense of identity through unions, and you express yourself best through joint work. If the Sun has negative aspects, you may completely dissolve into the partnership and not know yourself apart from another person. Another possibility could be befriending someone wealthy or famous in order to gain benefits through the friendship. You might try to find a father figure in relationships with others. Life will teach you that you should only depend on yourself, no matter how good a role model you may find. This placement might produce an individual who bases his entire life on the possibility of finding the one and uniting with him. It's found in the natal charts of people who do everything they can in order to attract the right mate. Such people dislike being alone, so if they break up with someone, they will try their best to yet again get into a relationship in one way or another. Such people can make great sacrifices in order to get married. They will be highly motivated to change themselves to appeal to a potential partner. The native status will get better as a result of marriage to someone of a higher social standing. So this placement usually gives partners with higher social standing, so when the native marries, his status also increases. The partner they are likely to select will be strong and domineering, but that is okay for the native because he's seeking support through marriage in the first place. Also, although the partner is going to be domineering, his nature won't be evil, but he's likely to be generous and kind as the sun is. Possibly he would be self-confident and proud. If the sun is afflicted, the partner's ego might be huge and he might be too domineering. Marriage is very important, and in general, if the sun is well aspected, he will attract powerful, loyal, generous, and maybe even famous individuals. Marriage will be happy and stable and will get more fulfilling with passing years. The native may feel proud and show off his partner, and the same applies to him being proud of business partnerships. If the sun is ill aspected, either the native, the partner, or both will be domineering and will try to enforce their own will on others. The lesson in such a case would be to be tolerant. In a woman's chart, she will go for a father figure in marriage with such a placement. In a man's chart, it shows that the man lacks confidence and may get into marriage to better his social status. His wife may be domineering, and he would be okay with that. Persons with this placement know how to act in public and would excel in work to do with promotion and sales. Your work should definitely involve dealing with many people. You will be excellent in occupations requiring diplomatic skills, and you will have the ability of using people to your own advantage, but this natural manipulation will usually work out for the good of all. In general, you will be more successful in business and partnerships than if you are the only owner of the company. Venus in the 7th house. It shows great ability to deal with public, and therefore occupations to do with facing the public, such as sales, would suit the native perfectly. Occupations to do with performing arts are suitable also, as well as those where diplomacy is required. Your public image is likely to be great. You are likely to prosper through business unions. Your business partners are likely to be pleasant characters who would not only be your business partners but friends as well. Work atmosphere is going to be pleasant. It also shows a happy marriage if Venus is not afflicted. Marriage is very important for the native, and he will try to fulfill his romantic fantasies through it. The native is likely to marry early and will probably prosper through marriage, and in general his marriage will be successful. He will find no difficulty in sacrificing his goals and other things he finds important, like personal freedom, for marital happiness. Your other half is likely to be of a beautiful appearance, but if Venus is afflicted, the spouse might be lazy or shallow. With this placement, the native may sometimes idealize his partner and may overlook some negative features of theirs. The native have probably dreamt of being married since he was a child, and if Venus is not afflicted, his marriage would definitely be of the fulfillment of his dreams. If Venus is badly aspected by Saturn, there might be delays in marriage, and in general, whenever any planet is located in the 7th house and there is a negative aspect to Saturn, it usually means some sort of delays to do with marriage. If it's badly aspected by Jupiter, if Venus is badly aspected by Jupiter, the native might be too indulgent in good living. An ill aspect from Neptune will make the spouse unable to be seen in his or her true light by the native. Some people can only express love to the wider public, like some actors or singers, but with this placement, love is shared through friendships, through close friendships, and the native receives love and appreciation in the same way. The native will feel at ease in social situations. Partnerships and financial and other benefits through friends will come effortlessly to the native. Like the placement of the sun, this placement makes you dislike your own company, and sometimes you will make friends simply out of fear of staying alone. This house also rules legal affairs, and since Venus is the planet of peace and harmony, the native will probably not get into any difficult legal situations and will prefer to settle things out of court peacefully. And if there are some legal disputes, they will usually work out to the advantage of the native. Mercury in the 7th house. This is an excellent placement for work relating to legal affairs unless the planet is afflicted. in which case the person should avoid anything to do with legal matters. A writing occupation is perfect as well. Also, work that involves the use of diplomacy is going to be suitable too, as well as the one requiring attention to detail. Whatever work is selected, it has to involve communication, as that's how the native will express himself best at work. The native feels at ease in social situations. The native will look for a partner that is intellectually superior because he strives to mentally grow through marriage partnerships. He will need to find someone who is challenging in some way, otherwise the native will quickly get bored. He will seek such challenges not only in marriage, but in any other friendship. He will strive to improve himself through stimulating talks with others. An afflicted Mercury may create problems with relationships. There might be misunderstanding in marriage or business partnerships, and the native might not be reliable in some way. He might not keep appointments or agreements, and in marriage disagreements may arise due to different views on life. The partner may be younger, and if Mercury is afflicted, a player, so to speak, unstable in many ways and a liar. He might be a thief also, by the way. Otherwise, marriage is also possible with someone who works with you. You may marry quite young. You may meet your other half when traveling, through writing or education. It's important not to overanalyze and intellectualize your relationship, which might be the case with such a placement, especially if Mercury is retrograde. With such a placement, intellect of a partner would be more important than looks. Also, communication might be more important than sex or any other thing in marriage. There could also be a difficulty in selecting a marriage partner. It's possible that there would be two valid options and the native will have difficulty in selecting one. If Neptune is also present in the house, the marriage could be celibate or spiritual in some way. Also, it can indicate a marriage that only exists on paper, like marrying to someone overseas so that you could permanently live there. This also applies if Neptune is not there, but the sign it rules, Pisces, is on the cusp. You judge about yourself through the way that others react to you with such a placement. The more people you meet, the more you evolve and learn through them. It might be difficult for you to commit because you don't want to miss out on anyone better. Some people you get into relationships with may prove unreliable. And finally, Moon in the 7th house. The native is likely to marry for domestic security or because of an emotional need. The family may influence the marriage, and the native usually seeks a father or mother figure in a marriage partner so that they are cared for and their life is made more structured. The native is likely to marry someone who is emotional and unstable in some way, like who travels a lot and is not at home most of the time. In a man's chart, this placement usually indicates that they will marry someone who has the qualities of his mother. You will dislike being alone and will prefer doing everything in union with others. You will desire to merge completely with your other half. Your emotional stability will largely depend on your partner's moods and his interaction with you and attention to you. With such a placement, you are likely to have many relationships and will not be able to see your partners in their true light. There will be many disillusionments in such affairs because you will continuously deceive yourself into thinking that the next person you like is the one. This is especially true for natives born during full moon. In a man's chart, if the moon is well aspected, it gives a good, caring, home-loving wife. His mother probably was lovely too. If moon is afflicted by Mars, both in a man's or woman's chart, the spouse may suffer from outbursts of violence. Because the native is afraid to be alone, he jumps into relationships too fast and tries to bond with another partner as quickly as possible. An afflicted moon can attract partners who are mentally unstable and depressed, or even dangerous due to psychological traumas. It's likely that the native will have many relationships and more than one marriage. When it comes to professions, the native will probably choose occupation where he is seen by the public, but his fame will usually not last long unless there is a relationship of the moon with some slow planets like Saturn or Jupiter. Occupations to do with art, design, or cooking are suitable for the native. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Take care.